I just wanted to rattle on very quickly about the fossil grove. A lot of you are probably fairly familiar with what's been going on with the fossil grove. I thought I'd just bring everybody up to speed with what the Trust have been doing over the last wee while, especially in the last couple of years. So I was just going to run through, this is a presentation I gave last night to the Friends of Victoria Park AGM. So it's a bit of a, so I tried to bring them up to speed at the same time. So it's the same presentation. So I'll talk about the background to the renovation projects, what the original plan was prior to the Trust taking over. The original plan we had, then Historic Scotland had a look at what we were doing and suggested a slightly different approach. So I wanted to refocus the project a bit. So I'll bring up to speed where we're currently planning, what we're sort of going to do with funding, and what our sort of vision, and then talk a bit about some of the outreach we're doing at the fossil grove. Just a background is that there was a lottery bid put in, a draft lottery bid put in by the City Council in 2014, and they developed a sort of complete rebuild option, a sort of £5 million mega rebuild of the fossil grove. The lottery sort of initial draft sort of turned it down, but said that the council needed to do more work on sustainability, how would you run it and how would you finance its ongoing running costs, and how did it fit in with the park strategy, Victoria Park. And that led to a review of the business plans. Glasgow Caledonian University were involved in a project to help us understand the tourism potential, and there was a big placemaking exercise, as they call it, to integrate it with the park strategy. And we then took some of that work on and started discussing it a bit more detail with what we could possibly do with the Heritage Lottery Fund people and the Architectural Heritage Fund. So quite a lot of dialogue with these funding bodies has been going on. This is what was proposed in 2014, a sort of minor option, a sort of extended option, and a complete rebuild option. This is what we were going for 6 or 7 years ago. This is what a sort of complete redevelopment and a new building was what was being thought about. Needless to say, that's probably a bit ambitious in these days, and we're more looking at this, some sort of more minor change to the existing building to try and give it a bit more life and actually preserve the building in itself. It's not a listed building, so we could knock it down if we wanted to, if the local youths don't burn it before we get to it. So the 5 million rebuild was probably not realistic. Glasgow City Council don't have the funding to deploy staff. It was given to the Parks Department. They don't have any museum expertise. Glasgow Life don't want to take it on. They didn't see any plausible way to generate income to pay the staff. But the problems are that the fossils in the building are deteriorating badly, and we do need some sort of quick, we need something soon in terms of a low-cost refurbishment option. So that's what we're sort of working on at the moment. So we did a tender exercise to come up with some architects and consultants that would help us with a renovation project. We deployed Smith, Scott Mullen in Edinburgh. They've worked a lot on botanic gardens type things in Edinburgh. And we got some initial grant from the Architectural Heritage Fund to help us pay for the Smith, Scott Mullen studies. And they produced some reports for us in November. And the problems they were coming up with were the ones we fairly knew quite a lot about water ingress into the base of the site, no heat retention, a lot of humidity problems. So high humidity, high and variable humidity, variable temperatures, lots of water. So with ingress, condensation, heat loss, and a lot of this was exacerbated by the putting on of the cladding on the outside of the roof and the closing of the vents in this, what we call the clear story at the top of the building here, which originally were glass and were glazed, and there was originally hot water steam pipes around the building. The place was heated by the parkies. In the mornings, they'd close the windows and open the windows. At night, they'd close them, and the place was kept relatively warm, and the humidity was controlled. Not in any scientific way, but just the guys knew what they were doing. But when it would go over to Glasgow Life, they just boxed the whole thing in, polycarbonate panels, didn't any ventilation, spent millions on fancy interpretation and all the posters and laptops and slides and dragonflies flying about, and it all rotted away in the rust and the dampness because it didn't put any ventilation in the building. And the original Victorian brickwork, which is still there, was cladded with impermeable cladding. So the walls don't breathe, they're dry on the outside, wet on the inside, which is the wrong way around, and the other way around. So what Smith Scott Mullen suggested that we needed to do is to stop the water coming in as much as we could, encapsulate the building properly with an insulated envelope, and then have some sort of electrical, mechanical ventilation and heating control that could keep the temperature and humidity at a constant level, and but insulated rather than have just things, plastic, but a proper insulated roof structure. Historic Scotland came onto the scene at this point and said, well, maybe we could look at natural ventilation and do something like what the guys used to do in the park days. Yeah. So we're looking at opening up the roof with its vents, side vents, and first of all, just manually opening them, and then secondly, to put them on actuators linked to humidity controllers, which we can do these days. We're going to do some new drainage work on the south flank. We're going to monitor everything. We've got monitors in there. We've got humidity monitors, temperature monitors, time-lapse cameras. We've got all sorts of kit in there that sends things to my laptop. I can sort of see what's going on and produce graphs and stuff. And we'll see how this drainage and ventilation works. And we've had grant funding from Historic Scotland to do that. And so they're paying for most of these works. And then we're going to produce it. Then Scott Mullen will come back into play to produce a new model for the building and say, well, can the building in its current form be saved, or do we need to put a new roof on it? Do we need to take the Harling cladding off the walls and put different things? So the science will inform the final structure of the building or the final shape of the building renovation, which we've got all this science behind it. We think that will really bode well for the future in terms of funding, because it's not just a pie in the sky thing. We actually have a proper scientifically researched result that we're looking for. So something like this is what it might look like. We would love to have some opening windows on the north side, some open windows that you could see in, and some lighting display on the inside that you could, people passing by could see the fossils without having to go inside, which means you can run the building as a visual attraction in the park without any significant running costs, i.e. staff. Staff is the big cost. There's no way we could charge people to go into this. We don't think. We wouldn't get the income. Putting a donation box, a donation card reader, yeah, we can get a bit of money, but it's not going to pay the staff. So we're sort of stuffed in some respects. So having a place that you'd walk past, maybe it triggers the lighting as you walk past, has some novel lighting displays inside. Anyway, so we think we've got a plan in mind, a sort of vision in mind as to what the place might look like. There's also, Walter will tell you all about this if you want to ask detailed questions about single T skios, Victoria Park, people make communities, Glasgow discussions, how the Fossil Grove Trust relate to the park. It involves all of Walter's time, a lot of my time. It's a very time-consuming process dealing with the treacle of Glasgow City Council. But we're getting there. They are sitting up and taking notice. They think that we are serious, and we can work with them to produce a plan for the building. But they've got no money. They think we are the people that can lever money into this thing here. Yes, and then we get into the nitty-gritty of details of ongoing maintenance. Who's going to clean the gutters? Who's going to pay the insurance? Who's responsible for health and safety? Who's going to test the fire extinguishers? All this nitty-gritty detail all comes into play once you start getting into the detailed discussions about this. We're running some events. They raise a little bit of money. We sell booklets. I've written a new version of the booklet for the Fossil Grove. We sell that. We have some lovely outreach events. A lot of people here. Neil's been doing stuff. We've doing Geobus have been. Gary Hoare from this society has been very active with us doing these outreach events. We were going to have one this Sunday, but we've run out of volunteers, so we have to cancel this Sunday, unfortunately. But we're going to do one on the 19th of June. I have definite names for the 19th of June. So we're going to have some gazebos, and do stuff on the 19th of June. So tell your friends, tell your grandkids. A lot of you are that age, aren't you? Unfortunately. Yes, I bring my grandkids to this. They love it.